The game never stops, and neither do we. This is the Morning Espresso from the SDH Network. We're always around the corner from everywhere. And I'm Jason Longshore. Here's what you need to know to start your Monday. Before we get started, a little quick word from our sponsor, Oglethorpe University, proud to support the SDH Network and Morning Espresso. If you're looking for a place where academics and athletics go hand in hand, Oglethorpe offers small class sizes, a strong liberal arts foundation, and a growing commitment to college soccer at every single level. Find out more at oglethorpe.edu. Now, let's get into it. Let's go to Africa. The AFCON tournament is completed, and a bit of a surprise. Senegal are your champions, winning the trophy in Morocco against the hosts in the final. Senegal are champions of AFCON for the second time, but this title will forever be tied to one of the most chaotic finals that any tournament has ever produced. For most of the night in Rabat, it was a really good final, really good match. It was open, it was physical, it was well played. Then we got into stoppage time. First, Senegal thought they had won it. Ismaila Sarr put the ball in the net in the 93rd minute. Referee blew the whistle early for you can call it a soft foul. That's completely fine, but there was a push on Achraf Hakimi. He lost his balance, but he was helped into losing his balance. The whistle blew before the ball ended up in the back of the net. You're not going to overturn that with replay anyway, but with the whistle blowing beforehand, that's not even a possibility. So Senegal feels aggrieved. Then you had more at the other end. VAR intervened. Al-Haji Malik Diouf was judged to have fouled Brahim Diaz on a Morocco corner. It was minimal contact. Diaz went down. He was demanding that VAR get involved. You had a lot of discussion. Eventually, the video assistant referee recommended a review. And this is where things started to unravel. Penalty is given. And Pape Thiaw, the manager of Senegal, goes ballistic, as does every Senegal player and Senegal fans. Pape Thiaw ordered his players off the pitch in protest. Nearly the entire team went down the tunnel. You had fans trying to get on the field. You had riot police coming into the Senegal section. It was total chaos for about 14 minutes. Sadio Mane, captaining Senegal, he demanded his teammates come back out. He tried to get them back out onto the field to get this done. Brahim Diaz steps up to the penalty spot almost 17 minutes later to take the penalty. Under all that pressure, he tried a Panenka. Edouard Mendy caught it easily. It was insane. Like, the whole thing was crazy. Let's go backwards. Diaz going Panenka in that moment, bad decision. Obviously, it didn't work out, but bad decision in general. I'm never a huge fan of it. I always respect players who have the guts to do that. I'm not a huge fan of it because I think it creates this type of opportunity. It was a huge momentum swing. Not just missing the penalty, that's always going to be a momentum swing, but missing it in this way created even more of a momentum swing. I don't know if the Panenka attempt in general, but especially in this case, justifies the risk. Now, that's all well and good. Let's go to the other side. Senegal leaving the pitch in the way that they did, awful. Pape Thiaw apologized after. Now, he was booed in the press conference by Moroccan media. That was ugly scenes. Senegal had felt aggrieved about a call going against them the other way, which, look, it's a call. It happens. It's a judgment call. It's a 50-50 call. You can justify the decision. You can justify the decision on the penalty. It wasn't given in real time, but in the world of video assistant refereeing, and that's where we are now, and that's just the reality, when you put your arm on a player's shoulder and pull, more often than not, that call is going to be given. Was it a ton of contact? Was it a, John Cena-esque pull? No, it wasn't. Brahim Diaz felt being pulled, and he went down, and he made the most of it. He forced the referees into a decision. But what also forced the referees into the decision was the action of the pull. You can't get away from that. These are calls that can be justified. And this is what I always talk about when we get into these refereeing decisions, where people, and this tournament especially, I think crossed lines in how referees were treated and talked about. You can debate judgment calls. We can all sit and debate it. Do we want to see it? Do we not want to see it? You know, I said in my group chat yesterday, like, I don't love this penalty being given, especially when it was given in stoppage time. But you can absolutely justify the decision. I don't have a problem. We can debate these decisions, and we should debate these decisions, because then the game starts to get called in a way that everybody gets more comfortable with, and refereeing all evolves. That's all fine. Debate is fine. I think there's been too much in this tournament of the referees giving everything to Morocco, and that's probably what feeds into these reactions. They didn't. There were decisions in the tournament that I didn't agree with. The Mo Salah penalty against South Africa, I thought that was a bad call. There are these kinds of things that happen in a tournament, but the refereeing in this tournament has been fine. It's been like any other tournament. Now, where Senegal also felt aggrieved, and this is another part of the story, is when they arrived in Rabat for the final, security wasn't good. The practice field situation wasn't good. I think the hotel issue was a problem too. There was talk about how many tickets were being allocated. There were a lot of organizational issues. The fact that Senegal's backup goalkeeper had to basically, for most of the match, fight and argue with Moroccan ball boys about the towel for the goalkeeper. I mean, this is happening during the match. This is a huge issue. There were a lot of organizational issues. I understand Senegal feeling aggrieved. Walking off the field, not correct. And I'm glad Pape Thiaw apologized publicly. He said he regretted ordering his players off. He said that we accept the referee's mistakes. We shouldn't have done it. Totally agree with that. But there are other issues that led to their overreaction in this, and that's not okay. Talked about this with CONMEBOL and Copa America situations in 2024, where people wanted to blame local organizers when it was CONMEBOL's organization, and we've seen this in the Copa Sudamericana and the Copa Libertadores with multiple issues. We see it in this tournament as well, even though some of it has been overplayed. I thought Hugo Bruce was out of line with some of his comments, the South African head coach, and what he had to say. I think some of the conversations around this tournament around the world have focused on the negative rather than the positive. It's been a glorious tournament on the field. It's been a blast to watch. You've had great players, great teams, great action, great drama. There are things in the way that this final went down that are not good, that the CAF needs to look at and get better with the next one. 100%. Refereeing, not a huge issue for me in this tournament as a whole. Refereeing decisions in the final, not a huge issue for me. You can justify both of those major calls. And what's funny, sometimes when all of that is said and done, all of those things, walking off the field, coming back, the apologies, all of it, the Panenka attempt, the players being swarmed by fans at the train station when they arrived from Senegal, or from the semifinal, the Senegal players, limited tickets for the supporters, training offered at Morocco's own base rather than a neutral facility, all of these things. It still was an amazing night, and mainly because of the way that Senegal went on to win this match. A great goal to decide it. Just a great... I think if you take these moments out, this is a great final in so many different ways. Pape Thiaw and his winner, thunderous blast from distance, and then Senegal having to hold on as Morocco threw everything forward. A great final, a great tournament. All of the talk, sadly, is going to be about Senegal leaving the field. I think there's been too much blame of Senegal in the situation. They were wrong. I'm glad Pape Thiaw apologized. But there also has to be look at the organizational issues that Senegal was upset about going into the match. And there has to stop being the conversation, in this case, about the referees because they got the calls justifiable. I can say it's right or wrong. You can say it's right or wrong. Pape Fial can say it's right or wrong. The referees make those decisions, and they got into justifiable decisions. And that's all you can ask for. That's all you can ask for in these moments. There is contact in both big situations. Decisions went against Senegal. They went out and they won it on the field. Full credit to them. And I'll go back to what I said in Friday's edition of Kick Into Summer. What not really what I said. What I amplified what Madison Cruz said. And she said it after the draw. That French group is the group of death going into the World Cup. And I think even more so with Senegal winning AFCON and coming in with so much momentum. And Sadio Mane, I think this team is really rallying around him in so many different ways. He said this was his last AFCON. He deserves to be talked about more in all of this than all the other stuff. He's going to be talked about a lot this summer in the World Cup as he leads the African champions, Senegal, into the World Cup, into a group with France. And you can get into so many stories right there, and we will in the run-up between now and the summer. But Senegal win AFCON. There will be so much more to talk about from this tournament. All in all, it was a great experience watching this. Big thank you to BN Sports and Fanatis for all of the coverage of this tournament, and there'll be a lot of stories coming out of it that we'll continue to cover here on Morning Espresso and on the SDH Network. Let's get on the managerial carousel. We'll go to England. Oh boy, here we go again. At Crystal Palace, Oliver Glasner has effectively set a clock on his own job. Palace is selling Mark Gahey to Manchester City. They started the process a day before a match. Glasner responded afterwards by announcing that he'll leave at the end of the season. The team lost at Sunderland. He accused the club of abandoning his squad, selling the captain without warning. I get his frustration, totally. He knew that Gahey was potentially going to go in this window. He knew that at the end of August when he almost went. Then he is working with a thin group. Players are tired. He's got very few options on the bench. But those kind of public comments when he's coming out of contract, it rarely ends in anything stable. It sounds like maybe things have smoothed over a little bit. I don't see how this stays as a peaceful coexistence until the end of his contract in May. We go to Tottenham Hotspur, and the pressure is louder. It's more immediate. Thomas Frank, he remains in charge for Tuesday's Champions League match against Borussia Dortmund. But Saturday's loss to West Ham pushed the atmosphere at Spurs into basically open revolt. Chants of sacked in the morning, boos at full time. Not the first time these things have happened. Reports of fans clashing outside the stadium, which, I mean, why? Thomas Frank keeps talking about turning a super tanker, and I don't think he's wrong in this. The club insists that it's a long-term rebuild. Yeah, you can say all that, but as we talked about with all of the other situations that have happened in the last month on the managerial side, the club can say things. It doesn't mean they actually have the patience to follow through on things. I don't know if Spurs is going to have the patience to follow through here with where things are turning. Palace is a little bit different situation. Glasner's going to be in demand. He is going to want to leave. He's out of contract. He's not going to do a new deal. So that one, we know it's ending. It's just the win. With Spurs, it wasn't supposed to be like this, but it is, and it's hard to avoid where it's going. I think that's going to happen sooner rather than later. We'll find out this week, I would assume, after Champions League on Tuesday. Let's go to Manchester. Some derby action, some performative punditry as well. We got to get into that. Manchester United, a great win over Manchester City, a disciplined performance. They only allowed one shot on target. Lisandro Martinez was outstanding against Erling Haaland. And yet, a lot of the post-match conversation is about either Michael Carrick and what his long-term role is with Manchester United, and immediately it's like, just give him the job. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. I'm not necessarily against it, but he did great in a very short period of time preparing this team, obviously. But the other part of the conversation is about what's being said off the field. Before the game, Paul Scholes and Nikki Butt on their podcast, they mocked Lisandro Martinez. They talked about him being thrown into the net. They talked about him being picked up like a toddler. I mean, things that were unnecessary and, again, performative. After the match, Lisandro Martinez responded calmly. He said people will say anything on TV or on a microphone. Yeah, that's oftentimes true. And he says, but face-to-face, no one says it. And that's a very important factor here. He even invited Scholes to his house to talk. And this is the point that the game keeps running into. When people talk, whether we're talking podcasts, whether we're talking pundits on TV, on radio, a job that I do, whenever this stuff comes up, you also have to understand, and I do, and it's a very important part of how I handle what I do. Players hear it. Players read it. They're not operating in a vacuum. Coaches hear it. Coaches read it. A lot of times they will tell you that they don't. They know what's being said. They either hear it firsthand or they hear it secondhand. Criticism, absolutely part of the job. Fair criticism, no problem. But when analysis becomes social media content, and then when social media content becomes mockery, it's not insight anymore. It's not analysis anymore. It's theater. It's performance. And that's a shame. And it's disrespectful to the work that the players put in. It's disrespectful to the work that the coaches put in. It's disrespectful to the game, in my opinion, when you're talking about somebody being small and being thrown around and mocking that person. One, you should say that to their face if that's what you're going to say. Two, you should put your hand up and say you're wrong when you're wrong and not, again, play into more performance. I mean, Scholes' response on his social media about how he prefers his tea, like, come on, stop with the performance stuff. Stop with that. Just put your hand up and say, hey, you shut me up. Great job. He gave him credit for the performance, but again, it became performance of the pundit as opposed to talking about the performance of the player. That's a shame. This game should have been about Manchester United's great performance on the field. That should have been the story. But instead, it becomes another example of how noise can overwhelm that. So it's a shame. It's a real shame. And I hope that this doesn't become as common on this side of the Atlantic as it is on the other side. And it's not just an English thing. It happens in Spain as well. It happens in every country. It happens here in the U.S. as well. And we talked about it with the U.S. men's national team. We've talked about it with managers getting frustrated. We've talked about it with players lashing out. We're going to talk a little bit more about players lashing out here in just a second. It is a very frustrating byproduct of where we are, maybe in society, but especially where we are in terms of communication and media and podcasts and social media and all of it. There is a benefit for many in terms of being outlandish and being big and bold and being performative. And that's not a road that I enjoy. It's not a road that I want to walk. And it's a road that I try to avoid that on-ramp as much as possible. And hopefully that's appreciated. Just try to be fair, just try to be respectful, and just try to provide the analysis and break things down without becoming the story. And I think that's an important part of what we all should be doing. Doesn't always work that way. Let's go to Spain. Unrest dominates even in win here as well. Real Madrid, they beat Levante 2-0 under Alvaro Arbeloa on his birthday. Gets his first win as manager of the club, but the Santiago Bernabeu turned on Florentino Perez. Boos for Vinicius. Boos for Jude Bellingham. Chance for the president to resign. Kylian Mbappe. Today, ahead of Champions League, he steps into the moment. He said, if you're going to whistle anyone, whistle everyone. Don't single out individuals. He said it's a team issue. He openly defended Vinicius Jr., saying he's not alone at Real Madrid and he must be protected. It was a very strong moment of leadership from Kylian Mbappe. And I'm glad he did it. I'm glad he said it. Madrid as we've talked about with the decision to move on from Xabi Alonso, has made some big mistakes that are now creating this entorno, this atmosphere, this environment. They have created this themselves. But, yeah, there is some singling out of players and people and situations that is not good. We should be talking about a win that puts them 1 point back in La Liga now because Barcelona lost. They had 3 disallowed goals. They had 5 shots off the woodwork. This happens. Outstanding goalkeeping from Real Sociedad's Alex Romero. 2-1 win for Real Sociedad. It ends the 11-match winning streak for Barcelona, cuts the lead to a point over Real Madrid. That should be the conversation. But it's going to be drama at Real Madrid. I mean, I would say until it's not, but when is it not? This is just what we do, right? This is where the drama is going to be. Real Madrid's going to be full of it. Barcelona, give them time. They'll be back in the drama conversation as well. Let's come back to the domestic side of things. Business, movement, just as busy over the weekend. Sporting Kansas City has been sold at a valuation of roughly $700 million. The Illig family sold 71% of the club. Peter Malik, he takes control with about 80% of the ownership in total. He's already said winning will be 99.5% of his focus. He's promised to spend more. This is the highest valuation for a majority sale in MLS history, and it's another marker of how far the league's business side has come. There are clubs who are valued at more than Sporting Kansas City, but they haven't been sold. So this is a big deal on the business side. I think it's a big deal on the soccer side for SKC as well. Inter Miami is a big deal in general, and they're trying to be an even bigger deal right now. They are in the midst of advanced talks to sign Germán Berterame from Monterrey for around $15 million as their third designated player. Now, that move would force some roster reshuffling ahead of opening weekend, but they've got the money to do it, and it sounds like they've got the roster and cap space to pull it off. We'll see. At the same time, Miami announced the richest sleeve sponsorship in MLS history with Lowe's, a multi-year deal tied to their new stadium and to Messi's commercial power. Big thanks to Simon Evans and his wonderful soccer business newsletter. Highly recommended you subscribe to that. You can find him on LinkedIn. You can find him on social media as well. That is a must-read every Friday. On the roster side, Toronto, they're trying to get Josh Sargent from Norwich. He had made himself unavailable recently for an FA Cup match. That upset everybody. Norwich responded by sending him to train with the U21s. They say he's not for sale, despite an $18 million bid. Standoff unresolved. Around the league, the movement continues. NYC loaned Mitja Ilinik to a club in Poland to get more minutes. RSL signed Danish defender Lucas Engel from Middlesbrough to add some experience to their backline. Played in MLS with Cincinnati on loan. On the women's side, Denise O'Sullivan leaves North Carolina for Liverpool. 9-year run as a club legend in North Carolina. Katie McCabe is drawing some serious interest from NWSL clubs as her contract with Arsenal runs down. And U.S. Soccer named Rose Lavelle their Female Player of the Year for 2025. Some refill quick hits here before we wrap up this edition of Morning Espresso. Canada, they opened their World Cup year with a 1-0 win over Guatemala in L.A. It's a B international. Caps don't count. Ranking points don't count for it. But Jesse Marsch liked what he saw. Jason Russell-Rowe scored the winner. Mathieu Chouanier delivered dangerous set pieces. Kamal Miller pressed his case for a roster spot. Marsh said the biggest takeaway is seeing his identity carry through, regardless of the personnel on the field. In Mexico, Chivas, they stayed perfect. 3 wins from 3 to start the Clausura. They dominated Querétaro for an hour, leading 2-0, then conceding their first goal of 2026, and they had to hang on a little bit, but they did. They're top of the table. IFAB this week, they're going to meet to discuss countdown systems for throw-ins, goal kick substitutions. Sanctions could include reversing throw-ins or awarding corners. The goal is simple. They want to get the ball back in play faster. They want to cut deliberate delays. They want to protect the flow of the game. They are meeting tomorrow, and we'll keep you posted on what comes out of that. Around the corner, SDH AM this morning. John Nelson going to break down all of the news. I'll also be joined by Abe Gordon from 92.9 The Game and Bart Keeler from the Soccer for US podcast, as usual. You can check that out on YouTube, on Twitch, on X. You can also check it out on demand as a podcast later today. 10:30 on the show this morning, Daniel Sperry of the Kansas City Star. He will join to talk about the Sporting Kansas City sale and the KC soccer landscape in total, and you'll be able to catch that later today as well. Tonight, 8 o'clock, join us for soccer over there on YouTube, on Twitch, on X. More AFCON chaos, more manager chaos, more performative punditry chaos. And as usual, shenanigans, buffoonery, picks of the week, all the things. 8 o'clock tonight, soccer over there. This Monday, sadly, wasn't really much about tactics. It was about pressure. It was about Senegal winning through all of the chaotic things at AFCON. It was about how Madrid is wrestling with unrest and Kylian Mbappe stepping up as a leader. Managers running out of time or running themselves out of time, or clubs not giving time. Players pushing back on noise and comments being made. Leagues growing, margins shrinking. Chaos and accountability all across the game, which never stops, by the way, and neither do we. This is Morning Espresso from the SDH Network. Make sure you are subscribed to get the email newsletter every morning. Go to soccerdownhere.net/connect to get on the list. Tell a friend. Plenty more to come this week on the SDH Network. Thank you for listening. I'm Jason Longshore, and thank you to our friends at Oglethorpe University for supporting the Morning Espresso. We'll see you tomorrow.